Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. I'm just doing this video. This is going to be very, very short, but I wanted to show you guys. I'm actually about to. Let me turn my fan down. I'm actually looking forward to making my own bow, and I'm trying to get into, like bow hunting. I'm trying to build up my skills of bow hunting. And the reason why is because this society is going to go to hell soon. And pretty soon, guns will run out. We run out guns, bullets, all of that. So we have to revert back to our old ways. I know that as so-called Negroes we are the indigenous people to the eastern seaboard of the United States, also the Caribbean and other parts too. But the Plains Indians, those are a different type of Native Americans than we are. They're not necessarily Negro. They are black, but they're not Negro as we are. And then you'll find variations in mix, but that's not even the point. The point of this video is, look at this. I actually have to get my book, y'all. I let a elder of mine borrow that Native American book that I have the pictures of. And this is actually from that book. This picture is the same picture that you can find in this book. You can find it in many other books too. But I think it's funny they didn't show the face of this Native American. But look at him. I was just looking at a video on bows, right? And they have this picture. Isn't that something, y'all? I mean, isn't that amazing? How it shows how dark he is, but I think it's funny that they're not showing his face. But look how dark he is. That's copper colored. I'm like around that skin tone. I'm of a similar skin tone, black as hell. But then, let me mute this. When he goes over to the next picture, it shows, of course, the lighter version. But you still see, look, dark skin. This one, he's a little lighter, but we know that they mixed with Europeans, so they started to get lighter and they started to change. But also, there were Native Americans of lighter skin tones too. We have to remember that. But I just thought it was very funny that they're actually showing he's showing dark-skinned Native Americans on here. So, sheesh. Now, obviously, this guy is of mixed ancestry, but damn, they tore it down. Oh, shit. They fucked him up. They fucked him up. Man, they fucked him up bad. Anyways, let me go to... I want to pull up. This is my ancestors' census way back in 1847, but that's not what I'm looking. Oh yeah, see, look, guys, mulatto. Look at his race, mulatto. And we know that mulattoes back in the 1800s and even 1700s, and even early 1900s, mulattoes were more than likely 99.9% Native American. I'm talking about percentage-wise. They were mostly Native American. Most times when they labeled them as mulatto. Don't get it wrong. There are some mulattoes out there that were mixed. But when you have it that they're mulatto, like the mulattoes of mixed, how you can find out, this is a key indicator, people. If the mulatto in your family was a Native American, okay? Or if they were really of white and black ancestry, or white or Native American ancestry, if they were of a mixed heritage, you will have indicators. And the indicators is if you can track them and they have a white parent that is traceable and a black parent that is traceable, that's verifiable that they were white and black, because some Native Americans were reclassified as white too, okay? But that's how you can find out, okay? I actually have some mulattoes in my family on my grandfather's side, and her father was black while her mother was white, and she came from England, okay? So that person was a mulatto. But on the other hand, it's still on my grandfather's side, and on my grandmother's side, I have people like him. For example, Daniel Harris. He's a mulatto, but his parents are both black. His parents were labeled as mulattoes, but they were also labeled as black. Okay? They were also labeled as Negro. and their parents was labeled as Negro and black. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you know that. That's how I know that this man, my ancestor Daniel Harris, was a Native American, because he has no white ancestry. Okay, so that is a key indicator. If you find someone in your family tree who is a mulatto, yet they have no white parents, no verifiable white parents, they are a Native American. Period. You know. So, anyways, I can't make this video too long. I don't think I can. Let me see. No, actually, I can. Okay, so I mean, the video, I wasn't really trying to make a video. I just really wanted to play out that video real quick, but Flickr. Okay. We'll go to my Flickr account because it's from this book, Travels in Interior North America. Yeah, and it's funny, I have to go and get that book. The reason why is because he's moving basically out of town, but his wife still has a house here, so he told me to talk to his wife. But see, here's the pic right here, guys. It's the same picture, but I think the color, remember I scanned this, they're actually darker than this book. When I scanned them on here, it was actually lighter than what they are in a book, just because I used the scanner. So he looks a little darker in this one, and of course you're gonna see the color will vary a little bit based on how they duplicated the picture. But I have seen some where they lighten them, like, I mean, iconoclasm type shit, where they intentionally lighten a person's skin to where they're around the stereotypical Native American skin tone. You know, that light honey brown, or even lighter than that, where they're almost damn near white. I've seen them do that with paintings out of this book that was done by Pricks Maximilian Wade's artist Carl Bodmer, or Bodmer, I don't know how it's pronounced. But anyways, just to go back and verify, this is the same picture. See, but this one actually looks better than mine. It looks like the detail is there more. Like that red is deep. That red is very deep. Let me bring that over here. I wish I could zoom in. Well, actually I can. Let me open this in another tab. I think I can. Let me see if I open this in another tab. Where I go to full screen this. Okay. I could have swore there was a function where I could. Oh shit. I could have swore there was a function that allowed me to go to, like, maybe if I post like a link or something. This don't have any links or anything? Huh. Oh, share photo. Okay. Okay. Maybe this would. Maybe if I go to it. No. Because I'm trying to zoom in. I can't do a zoom in function. Oh, wait. Here it goes. Okay. It is zoom in. It's not. But anyways, y'all see this is the same picture as this. But this one looks a little more rich. But yeah, you guys get the point. Yeah, he looks a little grayish in here, and that's simply just because of my copying machine. But look at that. Look at that, y'all. But, you know, I was I was at a family reunion today, and I was talking to my girl, and you know, I had made a very, very good point, and I made this point in another video that I'm actually going to upload, but I'm going to say it again in this video. Us so-called African Americans, we are the indigenous peoples of this land. Let me check my mic real quick to make sure that the sound is even working. Let me see. Okay, yeah, it's working. It's working. Turn the volume up, actually. Okay, yeah, so I probably got much louder. I'm not sure. But anyway, so I told her, because we were walking and talking, we were going over scriptures too, but also I was talking about us being Native American because we were out there in the woods area, and I was like, man, I wonder how our people dealt with the insects and stuff like that, because they were out there tearing me up. And I was like, man, it must have been hard. So then we start talking about our people, our ancestors, our indigenous ancestors here of the so-called Negro. And I was, saying like, I can see how we lost our identity as a people. I can completely understand, because we lose information so easily nowadays. I mean, so why wouldn't we lose information that we had hundreds of years ago if we forget information that we just had only 20 years ago? Studies have shown that information can be lost in 2 generations. If it's not spoken of or taught, within 2 generations it will be lost. So it's very important to continue to teach your kids, and emphasize it so they can teach their children, so it can never be forgotten. Because if you don't write it down, it will be forgotten. An example of that, a lot of our people forgot that we created rock and roll. A lot of our people forgot that we created country music, techno. Pretty soon, if we keep going the way we're doing, we're going to be forgetting that we created hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I seriously, I was telling her that our grandparents felt us. They felt us. Their parents felt them, and their grandparents felt their parents, and their great-grandparents felt their grandparents, and then their great-great-grandparents felt their great-grandparents. And it goes on like that, and that's how we forgot who we were, because information can be lost in 2 generations. So I can see how we lost our identity and our culture that quick. Because like I told her, we don't have any stories of us going back to Africa. We don't. The people who are telling us that we're from Africa and are Africans are not our people. And our elders continue to fail us because they want to integrate. And it's not necessarily their fault. Let me say this. Because if you read and you study history, and you read, articles written back in time, and see, what I think is so important is the literature that was written the time of, or around the time of you're speaking of. That's the literature that's very important, because it's not anyone's opinions. It's usually up to it's not really up to interpretation, basically, is what I'm saying, because it's coming out of the horse's mouth. So if you have articles and news clippings and stuff like that, journals and logs from explorers and just people from back then, it's more accurate. If they're saying, hey, these Native Americans were Negro in feature, they were much unlike the Ethiopian. If that's coming out of the horse's mouth, these explorers, you can't debate that. You can't say that, oh, okay, well, that's left up to the interpretation of the reader or the person who wrote or who interpreted the literature that was written back then. No, that's not what it is. It's actually coming out of the horse's mouth. So that's why I like that's why I like reading material that comes from the 1700s. That's why I love reading material that comes from the 1800s, because they actually got to see us then. They actually got to see us when we were indigenous people, when we claimed our heritage, when we knew who we were at that time. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily like reading from books that were written within the past like 50 years unless they have sources, verifiable sources that you can read from. And there are a lot of books out there like that though. But yeah, when you read, you find out that our ancestors had to disown their heritage if they wanted to stay on their lands. This is why a lot of black folks have family members, especially if your family, all of our family is mostly from the South. Most blacks are from the South. you have family members who were sharecroppers. We all have these same stories where we have family members, great grandparents, whatever, who were sharecroppers. The reason why they were sharecroppers, you can read this, you don't take my word for this, study this stuff, you can look it up yourself. You'll find, if you just type it in Google, you will find books that reference this stuff, you know what I'm saying, and you can verify this. Also go to Karimio what's his name, Ahau channel. He has a lot of great sources in there where you can buy books, and he quotes all the books and the sources and stuff in there. So where they say that the indigenous people had basically, they were given an ultimatum by their conquerors, by the colonizers, the whites. They were given two options: to stay on their land, their sacred land, where their family has been for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, hundreds and or thousands of years. But in order to stay there, they had to disassociate themselves with their culture. They, in a way, had to assimilate into this colonizer's culture. They had to work as sharecroppers on this land, and then they could get a little piece of the land that they were working on. So they were in indentured servitude, basically. And they had to change their names, and most of the time they either had their names changed based on their skill type. So if they were a family of fishers, they would be changed, their name would be changed to Fisher. Or if they were hunters, their name would be changed to Hunter. Or if they had, based on any of their skills, like Smith, if they worked with metal or anything like that, they would be called a Smith. Or the other way was, if they, whoever owned that property at that time that they were sharecropping on, they would take on their last names. And this was their way to Americanize them, because remember, in the 1800s, they were building schools for indigenous people to colonize us. Not only us physically, because they was already colonizing us physically, but us mentally, to get us away from our culture, to make us forget who we were. And a lot of us were so afraid of losing our land and our lives and our family that we conformed. We took on these names. We took on their mindsets. We started to lose ours, and we started to want to be like them. So much so that we were giving up our own legacy and our own history. You know what I'm saying? We were giving up our own history and our own lands to assimilate. Now the other option was, hey, okay, you can keep your culture, but guess what? We're getting you the fuck out of here. Guess what? We found gold up under these grounds here in Georgia. So you want to keep your culture? You don't want to get off your land and work for a white man and join our civilized society and take on our religion, our twisted religion, which we stole from you guys in the first place? You know what? You can keep your culture. You can keep that piece of shit culture, which they thought it was. But you gotta get the fuck out of here, because we need that gold up under your feet. So they moved them out west on reservations. And not only that, you can read that they also sent white men along as basically agents. These men were to go out there to mingle and mix with the women out there. Why? So that they can breed them out, which is what they tried to do. This is why most Native Americans out west on reservations look white. This is why they look white and have natural straight hair, because they were literally trying to breed them out. They were literally trying to breed them out, and then the lands that they get out there would go right back into white hands. This is why the Native Americans out there on reservations are so light. They're mixed breeds. Ask yourself, why do Native Americans, people who claim and are accepted to be Native American by society, why do they look like mixed breed people? Why do they look like Mexicans? Why do they look like Hispanics? Why? That's because they're mixed breeds. I seen Mexicans. Mexicans are known as, they're known, it's a known. It's a known given that they are of mixed descent. Same thing with Puerto Ricans. Well, not all Puerto Ricans, but some Puerto Ricans and other Hispanics. They're known to be mixed race. And yet you have Native Americans on the reservations who claim to be full blood, yet they look like a mixed breed Mexican. And there's even Mexicans who are darker than the so-called Native Americans that are in the reservations. And those people on the reservations, they're the same ones who be on our comment sections like, you're not an American, just accept your nigger heritage, you were slaves and all this shit. Well, guess what, your ancestors were slaves too. But yeah, and your ancestors were so-called niggers also. You know what I'm saying? They've been duped by the white man, and it's sad. When you really look in the comment section, a lot of these Aboriginal African Americans ain't African, and Black American and Negroes in the Americas are the real indigenous Aboriginal people of the Americas. You see these mixed breeds in the comment section hating. They push the same white supremacy that white people push. I mean, they are just as vile. And then they call us culture vultures and all this other shit like that. That one light-skinned chick, that one light-skinned so-called Native American chick who looks just like a Mexican, who talks just like a white girl. Check the shit out. Google it. Native American woman calls black girl culture vulture. Google it. Go to that girl's timeline, her feed on Twitter. Watch a video. She behaves just like a white woman. She looks like a fucking Mexican. Why? Because she's mixed breed, but yet she would claim that she's full Native American because she has two parents that claim to be Native American, even though they're mixed breeds too. This is why you can literally find people with red hair out on reservations claiming to be Native American and look just like Billy Bob, who works downtown. I mean, or smoking meth somewhere. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm just keeping it real with you guys. But anyways, I went off on a tangent. Those were basically the two options they were given: to conform and stay, but have your whole history erased, paper genocide, all that. Because if you claimed it, you will be killed. They actually had laws in Virginia in the 1700s and 1800s that if you claim to be Native American, they will kill you. They will kill you. If you were a black person claiming to be Native American, they will hang you by the fucking neck and kill you. Okay? And then the other option was, okay, you can keep your culture, but guess what? We're moving you the fuck away from here. We're moving you to the badlands of America, where the land is very terrible. You can barely grow shit on there. Good luck. Oh, wait, we found oil. Now you guys have to get the fuck out of here again, because now we use oil now. Oil was the new gold. It's black gold. Now we getting you the fuck out. So they can't get they're still under curses, man. Because we really go back to Israel. That was our culture before we got here to America. That's our history before we got over here to America. Israel. But yeah, I'm not gonna go off in that area. But yeah, and it's funny because I seen one of those mixed breeds in the comment section hating. He actually made a video. He made a channel scoffing against us, y'all. And what did he say? He said something. He was saying a lot of shit, man. But brothers was in the comment section. Even sisters was in there tearing his ass up. It was like, yo, yeah. So what color are you? Oh, yeah. Copper color must have a new color now. I mean, copper must be like white now, or very pale. He said something to that effect. He was making fun of him not being copper colored because the indigenous people, even when you look on Wikipedia, Native Americans are said to be copper colored. This is copper colored. This brother is damn near copper colored. You know what I'm saying? If you look at actual copper, the color of a fucking penny, it's around our skin complexion. Not the so-called Native Americans that claim to be Native Americans. They're not copper colored. When you look at the old pictures, when you look at the old photos of so-called Native Americans, these people are copper colored, nappy hair people. Now, of course, there's two different types of Native Americans, and these right here are Plains Native Americans. Their culture is a little different from ours. People have to understand there's different cultures and different peoples in the Americas, but we're all family though.
except for the Inuits. Those are pure Asian people. Those are not our people at all. Those people came over way after we did. But these are Plains Indians. These are mixed breeds themselves. They're mixed breed, but also with the hair. The reason why the hair is wavy like this, it's not naturally straight. The reason why the hair is wavy is because they used basically old-fashioned. They were basically using relaxers. Relaxers are nothing new. Relaxers have actually been around for hundreds of years, and some people have even argued that it's been around for thousands of years. So when you think about it, the first relaxer the first modern relaxer that people still use to this day was made back in the 1800s. Okay? Relaxers have actually been around for a few hundred years now. The modern day relaxer. And it was made out of simple materials like eggs, mayonnaise, and a bunch of other like natural stuff that you can find in the grocery store. And this shit straightens out your hair. You know, also bear grease was another material that they used to straighten their hair. You know, and they even had hot combs. Hot combs have been around for thousands of years. So our people were literally out here relaxing their hair. Now, mind you, I want you to mind this, that a lot of Plains Indians, they call them Plains Indians because they lived out in like the savannas of Middle America. So once we got to like Nebraska, Utah, Missouri, all that area over there, that's where most of the Plains Indians live. Minnesota, those places out west. These are Plains Indians. Now these Native Americans are mixed. Some of them are mixed with white, but most of them are a mixture of Asiatic and Negro. Okay, mind you, Asian people were black at one time too. Okay, but these people are mixed with Asiatic. Some of them are. Not all of the Plains Indians, but most of them were. The Asiatics, they made it over here way after we did, but they've been here way longer than whites have. They made it over here to where they actually made it all the way down to, they mixed with the people all the way down even to the southern parts of the Americas. But this is why the hair look wavy. This is why their hair looks wavy. When you put a relaxer in your hair, depending on how strong it is, if it's not as strong, your hair will come out less straight, will come out more wavy. This is why when you look at pictures, their hair kind of look it looks weird. It looks like it's been gelled down. If you ever take curly hair, long curly hair, and gel it down, it looks like how a lot of these Native Americans look in their pictures. Oh, their hair is straight, but it's like curly and pressed. It looks like a sister that really like greased, like gelled her hair down and shit. Sorry for cussing. But this is why their hair is always wavy. It's never straight. You know, the so-called Native Americans of today, their hair is naturally straight. And how you can tell is because it's straight. There's no curls in it at all. There's no waves. Look, why are these people's hair all wavy? They didn't have curling irons back then. You know what I'm saying? But their hair is all wavy. Even though it's straight, it's wavy. All these Native Americans, their hair are wavy. It's not completely straight, okay? And that's because they were actually relaxing their hair back then. Even in these pictures, their hair is wavy. And see, back then we used natural stuff in the hair. We didn't destroy our hair like we're doing today. Like the reason why a lot of our women can't grow hair today is not because black people can't grow long hair. That's not true, because black men, on average, have longer hair than black women. When we grow our hair out, our hair gets longer, and that's because us men, we don't put a lot of chemicals in our hair like women do. But anyways, so like I said, going back to my main point, we forgot who we were. Okay, why? Because our people were busy trying to assimilate. The ones who stayed. You know, some of us resisted. Some of us actually got to stay in our homeland because we fought so fucking hard. You know, Some of our ancestors kept it on the low, and we kept it secret, and we just passed the stories down within our family. We didn't walk around with our culture showing, okay? But a lot of us forgot who we were because we walked away from it. Think about it like this. Us black people, we do a bad job. We have done a bad job at keeping our history, keeping intact of our history. Because even here, we didn't really have a written language. We taught our people verbally. We didn't write things down. Don't get it twisted. There were cultures here that did write, but a lot of our tribes didn't practice it. We didn't practice a written language when we were over here. Not all of us. And that was kind of our downfall because we didn't document a lot of things. We just did oral traditions, and it's still practiced to this day. This is why we have these stories of Native American in our family. But it still plagues us to this day because if it wasn't for the white man, we wouldn't even know about what happened in the 60s. Be honest. How many black folk do you remember that lived during the 60s and 50s as adults and tell you what happened back then? How many of them do they just, oh, you know what? You know, when we were young, this used to happen. You don't hear that often. Be honest, guys. How many older black folks today that are in their 70s, that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s talk about it? Not that often. You have to talk to them like, you know, Grandpa, what happened? What was going on when you were young? Because I learned today in school that white people treat you like that. Then it comes out. You know what I'm saying? But they don't teach us. They don't teach us like, I want to sit all you kids down, and I want to tell you how white people treated us in the 50s and 60s. No, they don't do that on a large scale level. It's not like every black grandparent or great grandparent teaches their kids this. It's not like it's a common practice in our households. Why? Because my grandfather told me that they didn't teach their kids how the white men were treating them because they bit down and they continued forward. That's always what our grandparents told us. Even though the white man was always pushing them down, they just, they took it and they just kept moving forward. And my grandfather, he used to tell us how he was treated poorly by white people. And they called them niggers and all that stuff. But he never went home and told his wife. He never went home and told his kids what happened to him. And it was the same thing with his parents. So our grandparents were trying too hard to hide it from us, to where they didn't teach their kids and their kids didn't teach their kids. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it happens. So if it wasn't for the white man shoving Black History Month down our throats every year, I don't even think that we would know about the 60s, to be honest. I don't think that we would know about the civil rights movement that happened in the 60s, the 50s, and 60s. And even the civil rights movement goes all the way back to the 1930s. And back then it wasn't about assimilation, it was about equal rights. The civil rights movement got hijacked by agents who were working for the government to push the whole assimilation thing, to the integration. No. Before it was just about, hey, leave us the fuck alone. Leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And that's where our Black Wall Streets came from. But when you start burning down Black Wall Streets, that was their way of trying to make us assimilate and to push that whole assimilation agenda. And then our people wanted to be all in, with the white man, stuff like that. But anyways, I believe if it wasn't for the white man pushing that shit down our throats, and let's believe the reason why they push that shit down our throats is because they want us to remember that we were slaves. They're trying to push that whole narrative that we came from Africa and that we were slaves. Because really, when you think about it, that's the furthest our history goes back with these white people. When dealing with white people, that's as far as that they will take our history back to slavery. Oh, you came over on slave ships from West Africa. They want to keep pushing that narrative. Every year our kids are being indoctrinated with that bullshit. That's all it is. It is nothing more than an indoctrination tool to disassociate us from the Americas. Think about it. This is why that's why they push that shit down our kids' throats and even our throats every fucking year. has nothing to do with the civil rights. It's just the slavery thing from Africa. But we would not know about that. The point is, we would not know about it if it weren't for the white man and his education system, his miseducation system. Because our grandparents don't talk about it. Be honest, guys. How many of our grandparents talk about it and talk about it often? Tell us how bad the white man and how evil the white man was. How the white man was spraying them down with hose, water hose, lynching them, and all this other shit. You don't hear that shit from our people. You don't hear it from our elders. They're too busy trying to assimilate. And that was the same thing our ancestors were doing in the 1700s and the 1800s. Look at Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks. You know, Karimio Ahalu, he did a great fucking video where he mostly talked about Crispus Attucks and how he wasn't really a African, he was full-blooded Native American. But you even see back in the 1700s that a lot of Native Americans had assimilated into European culture. They were living with white people and even fighting in the Revolutionary Wars and riots and all this shit with white people for the white colonists that were here. So they already show you that even back in the 1700s, we were a defeated people mentally and had integrated with them. You know? It's crazy. So I can understand completely how we forgot who the hell we were as a people. Because we know that we can lose first of all, we don't cherish our ancestors and our heritage. Why? Because they called us fucking savages. Just like they call us niggers so much that a lot of us don't even want to be black. And best believe, this whole Aboriginal movement has nothing to do with us not wanting to be black. It's just that we're getting back our identity. We're not saying that we're not black. We're saying that we are not African. We're black. We're so-called black, if you want to say that. Really, we're brown or red. You know, it's funny because even when I was a little kid, I used to look at my arms. I'm like, man, there's a red hue in there. It's no wonder why they called us red men. It wasn't because we were a light-skinned brown, but they called us red because of the hue of our skin and also the war paint that we wore, which was red and black. But yeah, guys, this is how we forgot who we were, because our ancestors were warriors, of course, but as today we just wanted to cower and to integrate into the white society, so much so that we didn't teach our children. Just like how, you know, we forgot who we were as indigenous people, would be the same way if the white man didn't shove black history down our throats every year. We would have forgot about that, because our ancestors don't teach us this. They don't teach us. And my grandfather even said it. His generation and the generation before that, they failed us. We're so shocked and confused today about how white people treat us. Why? Because yeah, we know about racism, but we don't know about the true realities of it, because our parents weren't taught by their parents. I mean, literally, my two parents lived in the 60s, lived in the 70s, where they were still, you know, busing black folks out to white schools, where they were still being called niggers, go home niggers, and all this other shit. Yet, you won't get out of your parents unless you talk to them about it. You know, like, so how was it like when you were young? It's not like they're teaching. Our parents should be teaching us this shit. Just like how they teach us how to, you know, handle money, manage funds, pay rent, all that shit. They should be teaching us the same way about our history. Our grandparents should be doing the same thing. It should be like that from parent to child in every generation. But it's not like that with our history. This is how we forget. You know? It's crazy, y'all, man. But it's amazing at the same time that we could lose such identity. Paper genocide is real. It's written in the history books. You talk to historians, they will tell you that what I'm talking about is true. You can find it online easily. That and Native Americans were reclassified to Negro, mulatto, colored, and all this other shit. Millions of them. Where did they all go? They didn't just vanish or breed out. No, they're still here. You're hearing the voice of one right now. You're more than likely one, if you're a so-called Negro of the Americas. I mean, the Negroes made it all the way around the world from supposed Africa to the Pacific Islands. But yet they just completely skipped over the Americas, even though we have architecture showing Negro faces here in the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Like, come stop it. Even though Luzia, I think that's her name, the skeleton that was found of a Native American girl that goes back thousands of years, was a Negro. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Even though we have pictures like this, we have Mayan temple paintings showing Negroes. Yeah, they skipped over this place. Get the fuck out of here, guys. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy how the paper genocide is real. See, they tried to wipe us out. There was just too many of us. Too many of us. We were a majority. I think it's funny how this video changed. I didn't even intend this video to be this long or this profound, to be honest. But I'm glad it did. But it's crazy how, you know, they try to wipe us out. But there was just way too many of us. I still believe today that there's way more so-called Negroes here in the USA than there are than what they're telling us, because I believe it's another tactic to make us feel like we can't win. You know, oh, we don't have enough numbers. I think we do. But this is why they brought in so many Europeans starting in the 1800s. Because in the 1700s, they basically stopped around the 1800s. I'm sorry, the 1700s, from the 1500s all the way up to the 1700s, there wasn't that many whites coming over here. It wasn't until around the early 1800s that they started to bring in more Europeans. It was after the Revolutionary War that they started to bring in more Europeans. The reason why was because they were starting to expand out west, where there were more indigenous people. In order for them to win these wars, they had to bring in more Europeans that will fight for their fellow white man. Because if they sent us out west, they really didn't have too many people over here. It wasn't until the 1800s, when they found out that there was gold out west, that they started to bring in more Europeans. You guys, you can read about this shit. You can read about this. Don't take my word for it. Don't take any of this. Go and research this shit yourself. Once when they found out there was more gold out west, that's when they started to bring in more Europeans. More Europeans. That's when they brought the Louisiana Purchase. They did the Louisiana Purchase. They found out there was more gold out there. They started bringing in more Europeans so they can fight us. So that they can fight us, kill us, and take our lands, and take the gold that was up under the land. And just look at the records, guys. Look at the records. You will see that the Europeans, they started to come in from all parts of Europe at that time. During the late 1700s, early 1800s, they started coming from all different places in Europe. A lot of them came over from, because they had a lot, supposedly they had a lot of famines in Europe. That's why they brought them over here. Bullshit. They brought them over here so they can build up their numbers. So once when they start fighting these wars out west, you can read about all these little battles and skirmishes that they had out west, pushing the Native Americans further and further west, killing them, rounding them up, wiping out whole villages. This is why they was bringing Europeans over here. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Quote me on this shit. Literally, when Europeans came off the boat, you know they did? Sign up for this war. Sign up for this war. If you don't, you get right back on that boat and get the fuck out of here. I'm not kidding you. Google it. Don't believe me? Google it right now. that early European immigrants had to sign up to join the army in order to to settle here in the United States. You know what I'm saying? And also, what they were doing too was they were giving Europeans, like basically when they would get off the boat, they was like, "Hey, you travel to this certain state, and we'll give you this amount of land for free." And that's what the Oregon Trail was about. Not only was it about getting gold, but it was about establishing territories out there for the European colonizers. You know, so study your history, guys. Study it. This is why they were getting their numbers up. This is why, this is why they were getting Europeans over here. Really, the European immigration started like when they started to immigrate, a lot of them over here with the eye. It was during the late 1700s, and it became very big during the 1800s because that's when it was really expanding out west. This was way after the Louisiana Purchase. So they were expanding out west, especially in the 1800s. And they discovered gold over there. And then also you had the Civil War and stuff like that, where they were not only fighting the North, but they were also trying to expand out west at the same time. So they needed to get their numbers up. And this is why until the I believe like the 1970s, after the 1940s, immigration from Europe started to slow down a lot. But really, mass immigration stopped around, I believe, last time I looked, the 70s. I believe it was the 70s. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. It was either like the 1950s or the 70s. I can't remember what it was. Because the 1970s is when, the 1960s and 70s is when they started to immigrate a lot of Asians over here. But even before that, they were immigrating Asians over here in the 1970s. Specifically, the Chinese, they had them working out west, and they even used some of those people to pose as Native Americans. So it's deep. They were building railroads out west, of course, because they were still expanding out west. They didn't really establish the European colonizers, the so-called United States of America. They really didn't have strongholds in the West until like the mid 1800s, toward the latter parts of the 1800s. Like California and stuff like that. Those states became states way later. You know what I'm saying? I believe there are certain states over there that's around 100 years old, while places like Ohio is around like 200 and something years old. You know what I'm saying? Doubling the age of states out there. So they were still expanded in the West and really setting up shop out in the West until the late 1800s. But you can search all this stuff yourself. This is why they brought in so many Europeans over here. Heavy. I'm talking about those Ellis Island stories and shit like that. They were bringing these people over here to build up their armies. Okay? But I know that was a lot. I know it takes a lot. But, guys, go out there and research this stuff yourself. Don't take my word for it at all. Dane Calloway, I'm not going to say that he is the truth. Because that's putting a lot on him, saying that. And I don't believe that any one man has the truth, the truth that trumps everything, the absolute truth. No, I don't believe that. But I do believe that he has a lot of truth. He does. A lot of stuff that he said is very verifiable. You know what I'm saying? But he tells you, don't take my word for it. Go and research this shit yourself. I done research on my family tree, as you guys can see. And I found actual tribes that I'm one of the very few people, I have to say this, I'm one of the very few people who can actually go back to an actual tribe. Luckily, you know what I'm saying? But you can find it if you really dig hard enough. But a lot of our family members, they disassociated themselves with their tribes back in the 1700s, and it's very, very hard to find an actual tribe. If you can't find it in the 1800s, if you can't find it like in the 1700s, you're more than likely not gonna find it, because your family had already disassociated themselves from the tribe. Now, if you find, like I said, the mulatto with black parents, who your family member is a Native American, I mean, that it's just a key. It's just a sign that you're Native American, because we know for a fact that so-called Negroes, so-called African Americans are indigenous. We are the Native Americans. We are the indigenous Americans of old. So you don't need that. Just know that you are one, unless you have papers showing that your family came over from Ghana 50 years ago, 60 years ago, or 20 years ago, whatever. You're so-called African American. Your ancestors have been here for hundreds of years. Guess what? Congratulations. You're a indigenous American. Do your research, man. Not only on your family, but just on us as a people, and the so-called Native Americans as a people. Look at this. Border blue and fringes. Oh man, they know their Israelite heritage, man. It's amazing. Border blue and fringes. Border blue and fringes. See? Border blue and fringes. You can't tell me that we're not Israelites. You can't tell me that so-called Native Americans aren't Israelites. Well, anyways, people, this has been a very, very long video, and I hope it's been somewhat educational for y'all too. I love this shit. I love studying history. I love walking out, in the wilderness. Border blue and fringes. Border blue. Border blue and fringes. That's what the Most High told us to keep on our garments. But I like his bow. I want to make a bow just like that. Sorry for coughing in y'all ears like that. But anyways, people, I love this shit, man. I love studying this stuff, and I hate that we lost our history. But if you read Deuteronomy 28:68, it tells you why we will lose who we were. But I love rediscovering our history, though. Damn, I see niggas with a hairline. Oh man, this dude kind of like my dad, man. If my dad shaved his facial hair off, he looked just like my dad. You can't tell me this ain't a Negro. that's a nigga, man. I'm like a nigga on the street, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, and the reason why Native Americans are barefaced, I depict as barefaced, even though there's many Native Americans with facial hair. There we go. Yeah, I was even trying, but honest to the Most High Yahweh, I was not trying to go to this picture to show y'all facial hair, but I was trying to go back. Native Americans, contrary to popular belief, Native Americans can grow facial hair. They can grow full beards, but like today, in a lot of cultures, facial hair is looked down upon. You know what I'm saying? It's looked at as savagery and shit like that. Now, I don't know why we used to cut our beards off, but Native American men can't grow facial hair. They just shave the shit off. I have no clue why. Maybe I should look into it. But they said that Native Americans can't grow facial hair. That's bullshit. Sure, some of them probably had issues of growing facial hair, and who knows, maybe it was a curse the Most High put on them. But I can tell you for sure that Native American men can grow facial hair. I was actually clean shaven for many years, but then I allowed my hair to grow. My face, I had a straight up baby face, but I decided to let my shit grow to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh. Anyways, that's all I have to say, guys. I will be talking to you guys later, so peace out, shalom, and keep digging for the truth. Keep digging for the truth. Shalom.